Hello everyone. My name is Sowbhagya Varma, and it's a great honor for me to be speaking at the School Reformer platform. Thank you, Ms. Praveena, for inviting me to the session. It's a great opportunity for me to begin my career with this talk. I'm currently an MA Education student at Azimprintji University, and this is in Bangalore. Today, I'm here to share my perspectives on the need for school transformation in Indian schools in today's contexts. Although my perspectives have been shaped mostly because of my learnings from my peers, faculty, and other members in the community, the university, some things are very personal, and it's my personal school experience as well that has shaped me, shaped my thinking about school transformation. I just wanted to discuss or talk about a few things that I've been thinking about for this. Before I move on, I just want to very quickly share something about my personal journey so far. So I'm a native of Kerala, and I've done my BA in English Language and Literature before coming for an MA in Education here. And before that, I did my 11th and 12th in a government state school, government aided state school. And as you can see, my school journey has been very varied. I've done IGCSE before that. I did my 10th grade in an IGCSE school. And until then, I was doing till 7th grade, I was doing an ICC board school. And because of my interest into writing and poetry that I went in for a BA in English Language and Literature. But once again, my school experiences have been so intriguing that I came back to do my MA in Education after that. So yeah, so because I like poetry, I've had a few publications, and these are the publications. You can find them online. Yeah. So like I mentioned, it's my very own school experience that has made me think about school transformation, come into an MA education course and study many of these things. And I would say that like you probably saw, my schooling experience, in my schooling experience, I first did an ICC school, and you can all imagine how it would have been. And I would say that my ICC school was a very child-friendly, child-centric school where everything was done in a very Montessori style. And I've enjoyed my school experience so much, and it's given me so many opportunities that that's one of the reasons why I would say I am the way I am. And then as time passed, I went into an IGCSE school where I saw a huge difference in the way things were being taught, things were being evaluated, the teachers, and the kind of opportunities that were there available to me as compared to the ICSE school. And that itself made me realize that, there are so many more things that I can probably do in life than just, just stick to the normal subjects that are there. And then because I developed a keen interest for English and writing, I moved into doing humanities, which is apart from my parents and a few, probably handful of people around me, I did not have anybody's support as such, or, it was shocking for most people to see that I was going into humanities. And then I went into a government aided school from an IGCSE school. And that itself was a big journey that shocked my whole way of thinking. It's moved me deeply and contributed a lot to the way I'm thinking today. And just the mere differences made me think about and experiencing it personally, not just from a student perspective, but now that I am doing my MA education, I got the chance to reflect on my whole school journey and think about the differences that were there in the different schools as well. And that contributed to, thinking about beyond Kerala. All of this, I've done all my schooling in Kerala, and the harsh realities and harsh differences that I saw, even inside the same city, within say 10 kilometers in a school, was very, it really changed my way of thinking. And I started thinking about how probably other states in the country might be doing, probably states that are not so great, like Kerala in their educational standards, or something of that sort. And that made me want to do something about this, and that's how I got into I realized that I want to do my MA in education, and I want to learn more before I go into jumping and doing some action towards changing this. So yeah, talking about school systems in India, I'm sure most of you realize how complicated this is. So based on their ownership, based on the board, based on the fee structure, or based on several other factors that I'm not even able to list down, the Indian school system is so complicated. You have ICC schools, you have private schools, you have government schools, you have government aided schools, you have minority schools, you have high fee, low fee, inclusive education, alternative education, special schools, this school, that school. There are hundreds of varieties of schools in India. And even the thought of just thinking about changing something in the system just becomes so challenging. And in a way, I would say that although this is very true, almost in the last 2 years, we've seen that almost 70% of India's children go to government schools, and this is from the ESSER data. And in that sense, probably there's something from a systemic level of change that can happen, intervention that can happen, that would, scaffold all of these changes and bring quality education to the masses of this country, and not restricted to, say, the elite private schools that are there. So in that sense, moving ahead. Yeah, so I would just like to add on, like, the moment after my schooling, I realized that I no longer saw them just as schools. As a student, I had started thinking about it from a different perspective, where I was looking at the differences more. I was thinking deeper about all of these things, and some of these differences naturally came into perspective at that point of time. So yeah, just going to talk about, before I go into transformation, I want to say, like, schools are an organization. They work like an organism. They're a living organism. And, there are several parts to it that work simultaneously, that work together to make it function the way it's functioning. And just listing down a few aspects from one of our core readings, which is called Davidoff and Lazarus. The framework talks about how broadly speaking, you can categorize everything that comes in an organization, like a school, into these categories. So leadership and management and identity, school culture, strategy, human resource, the technical support, structures and procedures, and the context. So it is these tiny parts of the system that work together that make school as an organization work the way it is. And you must be wondering why there's a window and a mirror there. So I feel that in a society, schools function both like a mirror and a window. They reflect what they see in society, and they also put in new perspectives out there. And stating that thinking about transformation, you will have to think not just about the school. There are several factors that affect you from the community, from the society, from the larger global context, that pour into the school environment at different stages, at different levels, and different ways, that need to be taken into consideration when you look at it as an organization. Yeah, so I feel that school transformation, when I think about school transformation, for me, it's very much like a weather forecasting system. And like, before you schools build the future society, and if the people need to be aware and need the skills that are relevant for a tomorrow, for the world tomorrow, then they definitely need those things to be picked up in the schools that they're going. And in that sense, the school system need to be evolved in such a way, or need to be built in such a way that they're constantly working like a weather forecasting system, where they're seeing the future ahead of time. they're working towards achieving those things, or at least providing those things for the students. So in that sense, yeah, just a minute. Yeah, so working just on, say, teacher training, or working just on the curriculum, I feel might not be very helpful, or they're helpful to a very tiny extent. But then thinking about the whole school, thinking about all the aspects that I saw mentioned in the previous framework, there are several aspects inside of these broad topics that need to be thought about when you're thinking about transformation. And it is those things that make it possible for the children to be equipped for tomorrow. If schools are providing everything that citizens tomorrow need, then these are things that schools should work on. So yeah, just broadly talking about few aspects that I feel need attention, or probably are most important currently when you're talking about transformation. School-based research to contextually come up with one's own transformation plan. So like I mentioned before, schools in India are very different from each other. Each school located in its vicinity will have its own differences, cultural context, religious backgrounds, communities' beliefs. There are so many things that affect the school, and to make something, make a transformation plan that's very relevant to a particular school, that needs to be a lot of research that's done within the school itself. So the teachers, or maybe one or two people from outside who are working on, constantly working on doing this research and finding out what suits your particular school best, what suits, what works for your school best, what are your limitations, what are your opportunities, what kind of access do you have, or what kind of support systems do you have that can help in your transformation plan. That's some research that schools would have to put in themselves to think about transformation. The next point is keeping an open mind and arm to new pedagogical practices. So in schools, we see that now that we talk about boards, there are CBSE, ICSE, state. These boards are there, and they follow a very, typical pattern in most of the schools. There are the same textbooks. There are mostly the same textbooks, mostly the same teaching patterns. And it's very rare that a particular school, and if they do venture into other pedagogical practices, they're immediately called an alternative school. So keeping that in mind, more schools opening up their brains to thinking about new pedagogical practices and inviting new ideas to come in freely, that's something that will help in their transformation. Because as this is connected to another point as well, understanding how learners learn today and redefining old learning strategies and the purpose of education itself. So if like we all understand, the world today is very different. There's so much of internet, there's so much of technology that's around us all the time. Keeping technology outside is very, very, very difficult. And it's certainly changed the way we think, certainly changed how we learn things. And keeping all of these things in mind, if teachers and students and schools work on uh, thinking again about how can you uh, change the system in a way that's catering to the needs of the children, of their learning styles, keeping in mind their learning styles. And are you able to include most number of people when you're doing a particular pedagogy? That's something that schools do need to think about when they're talking about transformation. uh, Building the parent and student voices in making systemic changes. So here, what I wanted to talk about is that currently the most power lies with the system, most power lies with the school leader or the teacher within the classroom. But it needs to shift. It needs to be more distributed. More parents need to come and talk about the kind of changes, or at least need to be aware of the things that the school is doing for their children, and have a voice to say that no, probably this is not something we want to do. Probably we want to do something like this. Probably this is our cultural context. This is our belief. We want these things to be included into the school system learnings that they're having in their school. Probably thinking about the most disadvantaged backgrounds that could possibly be in our country. If it's a tribal region and if this is a tribal school, then the parents need to be talking about putting in their language, their cultural beliefs, and students also need to be talking about what they would like to learn, the subjects, and the way they like to learn these subjects. These are things that are currently not, not the mainstream kind of thing. So including those things into a transformation plan would be very helpful, and something that will, it would change how the school functions to a good extent, and it would be very beneficial for the school to include these voices. Some more perspectives. So when we talk about schools, there's no way that we cannot talk about school leaders. And mostly I feel that in the Indian perspective, you would find the principal that's very authoritarian. You would find them very rigid. They're bound by many things. They're not able to work beyond certain things. There's a lot of lag in the system. And there are many other things that contribute to the way school leaders behave in most cases. But working towards a more distributed leadership where the school leader is not the sole person who's responsible of taking the majority of decisions regarding the vision and mission and running of the school, not even the management, but more distributed power among teachers, among parents, among the students. This would help schools to be catering to more than just the needs of, say, the management, or say a particular ideology. If all of the other people also have voices to taking in decisions and putting forward their statements, then schools can actually be helpful, and it would, uh, uh, you know, uh, it would really change how schools are seen today, or whatever complaints that most schools have today, or most parents have with their schools today. And for doing this, the school leaders need to be empowered. So that's one thing. And school leaders themselves need to be trained enough to be motivating their teachers. And when you talk about teachers, most people would say that teachers today are very burdened. There's a lot of work, specifically looking at the government schools. There's a lot of work that they're doing beyond their academics, and just talking about any form of training or anything else beyond the class hour is very difficult. But then when you're thinking about transforming schools, when you're thinking about schools as not just a place where you're transacting knowledge, there's a lot of things that need to happen through the teachers, need to happen through the cultural environment that the school provides, that supplements the students in their learning. And in that sense, teachers need to be motivated about their passion, their purpose, and helped in building partnerships. So when I talk about this, what I mean is that most teachers over time may tend to forget the kind of passion they came into with when they came into the profession of teaching. But then school leaders are in a position to motivate them, to make them think about their passions again, and make them work towards it, make them redirect if they've lost purpose, or if they feel that they no longer feel the kind of energy that they used to feel before because they're so tired of the system. In that situation, the school leaders can be in a position to make teachers think about their purpose and redefine it for them, help them to redefine it themselves, and work towards the main vision or mission that the school has. Building partnerships. So letting teachers know that they're not working alone, they're not in this to they're not suffering alone, or letting them know that there are support systems available, be it through other teachers, be it through the peer support that they can get, or be it through say the school leader or a higher management that's there, who is capable enough to scaffold whatever learning or whatever support that the teachers need for their own development, or be it systemic level, be it from the block office or the district office, where there are constantly workshops that are more oriented towards the needs of the teachers rather than just general workshops or things of that sort. So that's one thing. The other is using a lot of ICT. Somewhere, I think the pandemic brought this into more schools, I would say, and it's become an absolute necessity that you cannot avoid in the future. ICT in mostly 3 or 4 forms, I would say. So ICT is basically information and communication technology. And in a school, you can think about ICT in the form of administration, where your all of the things like attendance or other processes that can be done automatically can be developed or can be made more easier through involving ICT into the system. It can be used within classroom for teaching and learning practices by the teachers, and for this even the teachers need to be trained for it. So that's one aspect. Then for monitoring and tracking, so whatever evaluation or things that are happening in the school that can contribute to research as well, these things can be monitored and tracked with the help of ICT. And just digital literacy in its sense for the students. Seeing the world ahead, there's no way that internet is not going to be like currently we're doing this online. So basic computer skills, basic how do you browse a website, how do you find information that's relevant to you, even these basic things are going to be very important for students tomorrow and the future citizens of this country. And the more earlier, I would say, you put it into their school systems, the more comfortable they will feel about, children will feel about computers in their life. So that's one thing. And the last thing I would say is that working on refining inclusivity within the school space. So here I'm talking about inclusivity from a perspective of children with disabilities. I'm talking about gender differences. I'm talking about all the other things that our society works on, then helpful in the system. So it can be caste, class, religious differences. Schools need to be spaces where all of these differences are kept aside, or their differences are accepted in a way that everybody is understanding the differences and appreciating it. So and when you're talking about school transformation, getting people together, making everybody working together, that's something that should be in focus. Making a safe space for people to talk openly about their beliefs, and just acknowledging the fact that there are differences and appreciating that is something that school transformation should definitely look into. So these are some things that I had in mind about the need for transformation, and the broad aspects that need to be, the key things that need to be transformed in the system. And how I think about doing these things are through, like I mentioned before, there are several government bodies that might be there who, like SCRT, that are working on some of these aspects, and who can scaffold. So schools are not alone. They need not do all of these things alone, but they can take the help of government bodies like this and work towards it. Or there are several organizations or NGOs that are out there who are working on this, that can be, their help can be utilized, their knowledge systems can be utilized for making these changes in the system.
Thank you, Ms. Sowbhagya. There are some questions lined up here. And as we have a time constraint, I would like to go through the questionnaire quickly. Most of the questions looks like related to the technology. Okay, the first question goes like this: what, according to you, is the scope of edtech platforms in the Indian marketplace?
I would only be sharing opinions. I'm not in any, I'm in no way qualified enough to make a judgment about this. But I would say that looking, that's completely inevitable for the future. But then talking about edtech companies that are out there and the way they're functioning, I'm not sure if that's the kind of pace or that's the kind of thing that I meant when I talk about ICT in schools. It's more about, so this is something that we spoke about in our classes, and is the edtech, or is technology providing something not? It's only in such cases, or it's only in such very it's only, technology is only used in a sense where it's scaffolding, supporting what's already there. Because
Can you adjust your mic properly, please? We are not able to hear you.
can you hear me?
Yes, now. Yes. Yeah. Should I move on to the second question?
Yeah, sure.
So another related to technology only. How can technology help to transform teaching and learning?
Teaching and learning. So in this, so I mentioned that in my presentation. The way I see it, most schools can use technology within their classrooms. Teachers need to be using technology. No, I'm not restricting this to having a smart class video, or having a PPT, that presentation happening inside the classroom, but using it in other ways where you're assisting children with disabilities, or any of the neurodivergent uh, issues that are there can be addressed through technology. And using those resources that are out there on the internet, and making children aware that these are things that you can go and search for yourself. That's a way that I was thinking about teaching and learning, using ICT in teaching and learning.
Okay, so next question is, what changes need to be made to encourage project-based learning?
Project-based learning. I'm not sure if I'm fully understanding the question.
No, what I think the audience want to know, like your opinion on, in a sense, what are the changes needed to encourage project-based learning in the classrooms while teaching?
So my understanding of project-based learning is where you're not looking at, where you're not teaching based on a particular textbook or a particular set system, but you're giving children a more experiential learning perspective, and where children are learning by doing things themselves. And that's something I feel is very important, and something that schools should be working on more. I don't know if that answered the question.
Okay, no issues, ma'am. Yeah. One is seeking an advice from you. What would be the main innovation you could advise teachers to implement in their classroom?
I feel that teachers are very, very creative themselves, but then maybe, through time or through ages, something makes them not want to try out a lot of new things because of the several constraints that are around them. But I'm pretty sure that any teacher who's come into a profession like teaching have definitely been creative in thinking about, designing new teaching learning methods, putting in more art and craft and music and several other things that children enjoy. And the more fun the children are having in class, the more they're learning. So, helping teachers to rekindle that spirit of thinking about creativity, thinking about that's like I mentioned, that's something that the school leaders can do. That's something that an external scaffolding system like a government body or at the district level or a block level can help in doing.
Yes.
So
I
yeah.
agree. So we have a name here, like Mr. Jayakrishnan wants to know, shouldn't the admin work be delegated to young secretaries and teachers focus on preparation and teaching?
uh, uh, should be delegated to young teachers.
No. It should be delegated to young secretaries and teachers focus on preparation and teaching is what he's asking.
Okay. I'm not sure why, but then why you would want to do that, because teachers, I feel that they're mostly there for a particular purpose for teaching, and definitely they do a lot of other administrative work. But if there is some way of automating it, because it's a regular process, say attendance, that's not necessarily something that the teachers need to do. If there are systems in place, say a biometric machine, or these things through a machine or through a system, then that would be more helpful and takes away avoid, like, the teachers would have more time to do other things that they really want to do in class, for all of the other creative things that they want to do. So that's
Right.
my perspective.
Mr. Jayakrishnan also opines, even the teacher should facilitate bringing out the passion and purpose in students early on, right?
Definitely. So if teachers feel that they are being supported for their needs, their passion, and their interest, then they will certainly think about giving that same environment to their students as well. And if you give teachers the autonomy, they are more than happy, or they will feel that what they're getting is also something that the others should get, and the others are students. So in that respect, yeah, definitely.
Yes. The same person wants to know, shouldn't the learning be moved out of the classroom occasionally to the field of action?
Yes, I would definitely agree to that. Even when you're talking about ICT, I don't restrict myself to thinking about classrooms. I would imagine future schools to be, or future classrooms to be, literally anywhere. It can be in a government office, it can be in the public park, it can be literally anywhere. And the kind of things that you can learn from your surroundings is something that we don't see much today. And the more we move out of textbooks and think about the world outside, and how you can immediately impact it, work on it, learn things, absorb from it, the more beneficial and relevant it is for the students. And yeah, that's something that should definitely happen.
Thank you, Ms. Varma. We end the question answer round here. School Journal of Education and schoolreformer.com, thank you for the talk and for patiently answering all the questions, ma'am. We also thank the audience for participating in the event, and we will end the session now, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much.